Overturning a Democratic election and impeaching the president is a serious matter. It's worthy of careful debate. So yesterday, Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida and several other Republican members of Congress occupied a closed-door impeachment hearing. They insisted that its proceedings ought to be public, at least to other members of the House of Representatives. But instead of debating that question, though, the press and the Democratic Party had another angle. Gaetz and his allies were wrong because of how they were born, because of their skin color. Watch this.
Looking at these members coming in, you saw a handful of women. Other than that, you just saw a bunch of white men, and I just thought to myself, this is not what America looks like right now.
When watching those Republicans yesterday march, those white guys, those middle-aged, boring, nerdy-looking white guys walk down that steps was pathetic.
This looked like a Klan group that had assembled outside of a jail trying to get the sheriff to let them in so they could deliver their own justice.
So what happened yesterday was a high school prank by a bunch of 50-year-old white men.
So the last person you saw there sitting on the Morning Joe set was California Congresswoman Jackie Speier. Earlier today, Congressman Gaetz responded to her on MSNBC. Congressman Gaetz joins us tonight. So, Congressman, you responded to her remarks about you, and what did you say?
I was really taken aback that the way that NBC News would choose to have a discussion about impeachment or transparency or Syria would be initially to try to put me on defense because I'm a white male. I guess, Tucker, I'm a little old-fashioned. I identify as a white male because I am a white male. And to use language the left is familiar with, I guess it's because I was born this way. But you know what? I predicted this last night sitting next to you on your show. I said that Democrats in the House were trying to impeach President Trump because they did not want to substantively engage him on the issues, and that this was part of a broader strategy to deplatform, delegitimize, and destroy anyone who champions the America First agenda. We saw that in play before your show even came back on, because instead of discussing the serious issues, they just talk about my race.
It's completely irrelevant to anything as far as I can tell, but it's also the most divisive thing you could say. So is the standard that we're allowed to dismiss people because of their skin color? I mean, I don't want to live in a country where people do that. I think it's awful. But that's commonplace now. Why would NBC allow that? And what did they say when you called them on it?
Well, I was flabbergasted. I said it was offensive and it's not reflective of a substantive interview, and I tried to then get to, I think, what is the important substance, because the risk, Tucker, is that if we take the bait to always be discussing identity rather than the work the president's doing, or frankly the work we're doing to try to have more openness in this impeachment process, then the left wins. But we see this as a new strategy, whether it's Ayanna Pressley saying we don't need any more black faces that aren't black voices, or any more queer faces that aren't queer voices. I don't even know what that means, but it is part of the new game plan for them to try to avoid substantive discussions on the issues by making everything about identity. We should stand against that.
Yes, it's such poison, and so many Republicans ignore it or cringe or whatever. And I mean, it's terrible for the country. It doesn't matter whether you're liberal or conservative. None of us should want this, and you're one of the very few who's ever said anything about it, and I'm glad that you did. Congressman, thanks very much for coming on.
That's part of the problem. Yep. All right.
Exactly,
thanks,
it is. I agree. Well, dismissing people based on their identity, their sex, or their skin color is just one facet of a much larger problem, and a more dangerous one: the left's systemic campaign against free speech and the open exchange of ideas. The problem is worse, of course, as you well know, on college campuses. At the University of Pennsylvania, for example, a panel discussing U.S. immigration policy was canceled completely after students protested against the inclusion of former ICE Director Tom Homan. A new poll, meanwhile, finds that 51% of Americans and 57% of millennials think the First Amendment goes too far in protecting free speech and should be updated to roll back that right. A majority of those who believe it think that people who commit so-called hate speech ought to go to prison. Peter Boghossian is a philosopher, author of the book How to Have Impossible Conversations, and really a legend among people who follow life on college campuses, and we're honored to have him on tonight. Professor, thanks very much for coming on. You've thought a lot about this.
Thank you.
This question of why it's so difficult to have real conversations in the public sphere recently. When you see this polling on young people and free speech, what does it make you think?
I think it's a mistake to frame the issue in terms of free speech or freedom of assembly. I think it's true, but I think there's something much nastier and much more pernicious going on.
Huh. And what is that?
And, well, what that is they're attempting to rob you of your cognitive liberties. There are academic departments and they have mechanisms in place in the institution to prevent people from pursuing truth on their own, from hearing different voices. And if you just think about it in terms of free speech, I think it misses the larger issue that what these folks are really after, and what I mean by these folks, many in the academic left who's really there's no polite way to say it, they've been proselytized by an invasive ideology.
Last appearance, Hillary Clinton made the lunatic claim that all of her enemies to the left, the right, are actually Russian spies. Now, that was so out there that it took everyone watching an entire week to realize it wasn't the only insane thing that she had said. On the very same podcast, Hillary Clinton also identified a new culprit for her defeat 3 years ago, mysterious videos that appeared from nowhere and have now vanished without a trace.
Well, I think there's going to be two parts, and I think it's going to be the same as 2016. Don't vote for the other guy. You don't like me, don't vote for the other guy, because the other guy's going to do X, Y, and Z, or the other guy did such terrible things. And I'm going to show you in these, flashing videos that appear and then disappear, and they're on the dark web and nobody can find them. But you're going to see them, and you're going to see that person doing these horrible things.
Author and columnist Mark Stein lives on the dark web practically and joins, whatever that is, and joins us tonight. Hey, Mark.
No, everything has vanished except for Hillary's victory, which we're living in, what is it now, the third year of Hillary's great victory, defying all the... Hillary actually has created an alternative dark web reality of her
that's
own.
That's noticeable.
Yeah,
it's like the Soviet potato harvest.
But it's incredible. It's incredible to me that she's still doing this, because, as you know, I thought you sent a chap to the Macedonian embassy. I thought she'd actually reached peak Hillary with the Macedonian content farmers, but she's now actually on the dark web. Nobody who isn't on the dark web knows what the dark web is. They're like you. The idea that the dark web is what delivered the Electoral College to President Trump is amazing, even by Hillary's. She's got to run. She re-elect Hillary 2020. She's got to run. She's got to run.
I actually don't know what is eBay on the dark web? I don't know. I don't know anything about it, but Hillary Clinton is a lot older than I am. So how does she know about the dark web? That's my question.
Well, I don't think she does know. It's like content farmers. She's never been to a content farm. When she blamed it on content farms in Macedonia, that's a phrase that one of her many advisors gave to her, like dark web. So these are, one day maybe somebody will go take a trip to a content farm. Do I have to do she's thinking, have I done a photo op at a content farm? Have I been to the Iowa content farms? The dark web is in northern New Hampshire. I think that's where they have the first pancake flip. It's on the shortest day of the year in December, and we all get up in the morning and you get a dark web of pancake dough in the New Hampshire primary. She has no idea. These are phrases, but the fact is that there's 7 billion people on the planet. And basically about 6.5 billion people were on the dark web conspiring to actually steal the presidency from her. Do you know there are headhunters in Papua New Guinea? They're leading blameless lives in the middle of the jungle who suddenly switch on TV in the middle of the night and discover that Hillary's blaming them for her defeat. There's no end to it.
There's no end to it.